There is one emotion that really impacted Joe and Madison's ability to communicate, and most couples don't even realize when that emotion is running the show. If you have ever felt stuck in a looping argument that goes nowhere, this breakdown will show exactly why that happens and how to stop it before it really has a devastating impact on your connection. Hi, I'm Dr. Pam, therapist and relationship counselor, and I am so passionate about helping you grow, both in your relationships and personally. And if that is something you would like more of, I would love for you to subscribe so we can keep growing together. And I do also want to mention that I am aware that Love is Blind is a heavily edited show, and my comments are based solely what we see in front of us so that I can provide you with relationship insights. And also for this video, I will be using clips from the first 11 episodes. So welcome to part 2, the next morning after a night of conflict between Madison and Joe. In part 1, I suggested that Madison go to sleep and wait to address everything until the next day, which I know is extraordinarily hard to do. The next morning is when you can process what happened, express your concerns, your hurt, your embarrassment that Madison had mentioned in my last video that she felt. That's the moment when you ask for accountability and repair. And the reason why it is so important to wait until the next morning is because when we try to resolve things in the middle of heightened emotions, especially when one person is intoxicated, it often leads to more disconnection, not less. When a partner is intoxicated, continued conflict rarely leads to understanding or repair. It usually adds more hurt and damage. Pausing creates a boundary around that moment for Madison with Joe. She would be communicating with self-respect by saying, I won't let myself be hurt any further tonight. Asking Madison to step away and wait until the next day is not meant to minimize her pain or to excuse Joe's behavior. It was meant to protect her from further hurt. That is an act of emotional maturity and self-protection, and it gives the relationship a chance to repair instead of collapse under the weight of unregulated emotion. The next day offers a chance for clarity, for Madison to express her feelings to Joe in a way that has the best chance of being heard and respected. So let's see if that happens between the two of them.
I woke up this morning without Joe. We're still figuring out each other. Getting some space last night was the right choice, but I woke up feeling sad. I woke up missing him.
It is interesting that Madison woke up and decided to journal, which is such a great choice because she is taking time to reflect. I am also happy that she recognizes that going to bed was the right choice to give each of them space and perspective. And again, I want to emphasize that it is beyond challenging to make that choice to go to bed in the moment, and you may likely not get a very good night's sleep, but you can see the difference in Madison the next morning. Okay, so let's see how the two of them process this together.
Okay, I woke up and it was just like, I miss Joe Snuggles. You want to sit here?
Yeah, let's do it.
I just want to start off by saying just the fact that we've only been together for 3 days physically.
Right.
I don't know what you need in moments. And, I'm sorry if I didn't do what you needed.
Yeah.
I wish I knew more about what Madison means when she says that she's sorry she didn't do what Joe needed. The only thing that she could be expressing regret about is waking him up instead of waiting until the next morning to talk. But that still doesn't take away from what needs to be addressed, that he got intoxicated and left Madison at the party. He said things he may not even remember, of course, when he was intoxicated that were confusing to Madison. And she is likely carrying that hurt that he left her at the party. So certainly she can regret that she woke him up, but there are still things that she needs to talk about with him that impacted her.
No, I don't think, you probably definitely wanted to be heard last night, and I wasn't giving that to you. So, I want to apologize for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to do better.
Thank you.
We could definitely talk about it, but no, I just kind of want to get back to the feeling that we had in the pods. And
I can't help but wonder as I watch this if they already talked this morning about what happened the night before. If they haven't, I will say the night's sleep seems to have shifted a lot between them. Still, I would encourage Madison to talk about what happened the night before, as I had already said. She could ask him directly, what was going on? Why did he brush her off when she was talking with Anton and then walk away? Was he already too intoxicated at that point? And even if he was, being intoxicated does not give someone permission to be hurtful. Joe still needs to have an awareness of how his actions impacted her. When I work with people who tend to drink too much, and I'm not referring to the occasional party, but there is often something underneath that's going on for them. Stress, they might be emotionally overwhelmed, they might be experiencing relationship challenges, something that they don't know how to sit with. Joe would really benefit from asking himself, what was happening for him in that moment when he drank too much the night before, emotionally and internally, not just what happened externally.
I had to get out of there. Yeah, no, it was good. I just needed a little sleep there and just trying to get my bearings of what we're doing here. And so, I just...
And I'm sure that was jarring, I can understand.
Yeah. I don't want you to feel abandoned at all. I mean, I apologize for that. I won't let that happen again.
It's a good start that Joe acknowledges he abandoned Madison at the party. Again, it makes me think they may have already talked about this off camera because he brings it up without Madison first saying that she felt abandoned. But that is what she felt, and possibly even humiliated in front of everyone. She kept telling Joe that she was embarrassed, and I would encourage her to talk more about that with him. But let me say this. When you need to share your feelings like this with a partner, it is important to do it without shaming. Shaming sounds like, what kind of person does that? You left me there. You didn't care about me at all. That's a shaming way to say it. A non-shaming way to say it with emotional honesty would be, I felt abandoned when you left and went back to the room. I was embarrassed and confused because I didn't understand why you walked away. That kind of language invites connection instead of defensiveness. It doesn't mean that you will always get understanding and connection. However, that is how you would approach a challenging conversation. So next, Madison and Joe are discussing meeting each other's family, and more conflict erupts.
Does it not scare you? Does it not?
You're scaring me a little right now.
Okay, but you have no reservations at all. I mean, like, yes, you probably do, but...
Yes, I do, Joe.
But you don't show it. You don't show it at all. Like, I don't see any worry on your face.
Do you want me to be worried?
No, well, it would make it feel a little bit... like more human. Like I feel like it would make it feel like, oh, we're in this together. Like I feel like some of it scares me.
This is a really challenging conversation. Joe is expressing his feelings and not in an attacking way. He's actually trying to connect by sharing that both of them might be scared. That is a vulnerable expression, but here's the complexity. Joe expressing fear is increasing Madison's fear. Why? Because when they met in person, she may have felt the weight of his uncertainty. Maybe not immediately, but perhaps by the time they got to Mexico. His ambivalence about choosing her. So when he says that he's scared, she may not hear vulnerability. She may hear, I am still unsure about you. That's why this moment feels so unsettling for her. That being said, it would benefit Madison to allow this conversation to unfold, not to convince Joe or soothe his fear, but to understand it. Because if he is ambivalent about their relationship, she needs that truth in order for her to decide something important for herself. She can ask herself, do I want to keep investing in someone that I love when I am not fully chosen in return? And that is the emotional challenge of this conversation. Can they work through their fear together?
The day-to-day doesn't...
Day-to-day, I have reservations sometimes. Of course, Joe. Yeah,
You never
when I
see the
see
voice?
you
Yeah.
shut down, when I see you fully withdraw from me. Yes, Joe, there are some things that you do that do make me kind of pause.
Those are big concerns. Joe shutting down and withdrawing from Madison. And that's why I'm not completely sure why Madison feels 100% certain about Joe. I wonder if she's ever talked with him about any of that, because over time, that kind of withdrawal can really take a toll on a relationship. When one partner pulls away, the other often ends up feeling shut out, hurt, and even silenced. And I don't think Joe's withdrawal comes from a lack of caring. It often comes from feeling overwhelmed, shame, or fear of saying the wrong thing. But if that's his way of coping, it's something he'll need to look at, because staying emotionally present, even when things feel hard, is what builds safety, emotional safety, and trust. Otherwise, Madison may end up feeling alone in moments when she most needs to feel close.
But like, I feel like you're like making it more negative than it is.
It's not. It's not.
Like,
I feel
I'm
like I guess
I
we
feel
didn't.
like I've been having so much fun and so good with you.
Yes, I
and
feel
now all of a
like
sudden,
it
I'm like,
has.
what?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't even mean to put it. I just wanted to say.
Like, sorry, I'm like too interested in you. Like,
No,
I'm sorry,
fuck
I'm
no.
excited about you. That's
No,
how I'm
no,
feeling
no,
right now.
It's hard.
Joe is expressing his emotions honestly, and that matters. If he had never acknowledged that this is hard for him, that would actually be more concerning. His words are revealing important fears and questions, but those deeper layers are not being explored. Instead, they've slipped into a loop, talking over each other, reacting, but not truly listening. When Madison says, "Sorry, I'm too interested in you," that's a moment of defensive sarcasm. Underneath it, though, she's scared and vulnerable. At the same time, Joe is expressing vulnerability too. They are both afraid, just for different reasons. Joe fears whether he can handle the day-to-day reality of a relationship, and Madison fears that he may end the relationship. Either one of them could shift this moment. Madison could ask, "Can you tell me what feels hard about day-to-day life together?" Or Joe could elaborate on what he means instead of stopping at general statements by saying it's hard. Without that kind of curiosity, they will stay stuck in fear and misunderstanding. But if they can slow down and go deeper, if they aim to understand rather than defend, they each have a chance to feel seen and heard. And when two people feel understood, that's when connection becomes possible. Right now, their fear is driving the conversation. Vulnerability and curiosity are what could change it.
Hey, but I want to hear something. I want to hear that, like yes.
This is crazy. How many times have I turned to you and been like,
Yeah,
this is
crazy doesn't mean like
I have
I
to
don't
prove
know.
reservation?
No,
Most people want optimism.
no.
Like, sorry, I'm not a
No,
negative bitch.
No.
Like, what the f do you want from me?
I just want you to
You've
feel
not said these things to me
like how I
literally
feel.
all.
Like
I want you to feel how I'm feeling. I'm excited about you. That's how
yes.
I feel.
They are emotionally escalating in this argument because underneath it all, like I have been saying, is fear. Fear is the emotion that is making this conversation challenging for them. Fear is one of the hardest emotions to manage during conflict. It heightens our nervous system, narrows our perspective, and makes even small misunderstandings feel threatening. Both of them are scared, but for very different reasons. Joe may be fearful he can't handle the day-to-day reality of a relationship, while Madison may be frightened that she is about to lose him. I would encourage both of them to say more about their fear and to recognize that fear impacts both of them. Naming that shared emotional experience can soften the dynamic, and it can invite empathy instead of defensiveness. When you notice an argument going nowhere and it's escalating, ask yourself, is there any fear beneath any of this? If the answer is yes, try naming it to your partner. Saying, "I'm scared" is vulnerable, and vulnerability invites connection in a way that defensiveness never can. Now, let me add something very important. To name fear, you must first recognize it. That is a skill in itself. Many people struggle to identify their emotions, especially in the moment. And even when I gently suggest that fear, when I'm working with couples, might be what they're experiencing, the word fear doesn't always land with them. We don't often use that word in relationships, even when it fits. Sometimes people resonate more with words like overwhelmed, anxious, uncertain, or afraid of losing you. But whatever the word is, becoming aware of the emotion underneath conflict is the first step. Without that awareness, the fear stays unspoken, and unspoken emotions usually drive disconnection. And in this moment, both Joe and Madison are scared.
I would like to talk through this.
Scared and
I would
upset,
like to
and
talk
I'm like,
through this.
that's what we're doing.
Okay, I know, but
And I'm responding.
without getting like it's the end of the world. I did not mean that. I did not mean that.
Oh
I did not mean that. I did not mean that. I did not mean that.
Joe is likely emotionally overwhelmed when he says he wants to talk about it like it's not the end of the world. He's uncomfortable with the intensity of the conversation. And even though he attempts to walk it back by saying he didn't mean it, once emotions are running high, that's very hard to do. Joe says that he wants to share how he feels without being taken a certain way. For Madison, she likely hears that as Joe not being okay with her emotions or expressing her emotions. So as they continue, Joe says that he wants to share how he feels without it being taken a certain way, and Madison responds by accusing him of interpreting her feelings incorrectly. They are both reacting from intense feelings, but no one is naming what's underneath their reaction. And let me be clear about one thing though. Simply naming a feeling does not guarantee a productive conversation. However, it does create more emotionally open conversations. Another area where couples often get stuck is that they confuse feelings with the conclusions that they draw from those feelings. For example, I feel scared is an emotion. You're going to leave me is a conclusion based on that emotion. Couples are often not expressing their feelings, but instead they are arguing over their conclusions. The conversation spirals just like we see here with Madison and Joe. Here is another example. Madison says that Love is Blind is for marriage-minded people. Let's watch.
Do you think I'm not marriage-minded?
Right now, no.
Okay.
Right now,
okay.
no. I know. Okay. Honestly, no.
Yeah,
right now,
okay.
no.
Okay.
Like, why am I wearing this? Why is it my back? I feel like such an idiot. I sit around with a ring on, excited about you. Well, I guess we'll just put that on ice.
This makes me not want to tell my emotions to you ever again, because I can't tell you, because you'll feel like an idiot.
Don't do that.
Okay.
Don't flip this. Seriously, Joe. Okay.
Again, Madison doesn't name the feeling, fear. Instead, she jumps to a conclusion that Joe must not be marriage-minded. The problem is that when we skip over the feeling and go straight to conclusions, those conclusions turn into accusations. And once a conversation becomes about accusations, conflict goes nowhere. She can say, I'm scared and I worry about losing you. Can you help me understand what's really going on for you? But then Madison takes off her ring, which is a symbolic act of ending the relationship. When someone does that in the middle of a heated argument, they need to be sure that's truly what they want. Otherwise, it becomes a threat rather than a decision. Threats shut down emotional safety, and without emotional safety, there is no emotional progress. I often say that you don't really know the strength of a relationship until you know how two people handle conflict together. Conflict is where emotional maturity or lack of it shows up. It's not about avoiding conflict, but about whether both people can stay grounded enough to work through it without attacking, accusing, or threatening to end the relationship. Healthy conflict, when handled with emotional maturity, can actually deepen your understanding of each other and ultimately strengthen your connection. Okay, let's see how they talk about their conflict the next day.
Last night was, I can see where I was at fault for sure, for definitely some of the words that came out of my mouth.
Cute.
I'm here for her. I'm here for Madison. I need to kind of man up here and just be more in the moment in these times with her.
I wish I knew which words Joe regretted saying to Madison. And I'm not sure what he means when he says man up. Sometimes that means shutting your emotions down, which is not the direction to go. But even more than that, I wish we could hear the words that he meant to say. Sometimes we don't have the language to share our deeper emotions. So what comes out is the only wording that we have access to in that moment. Joe repeatedly said this is hard, but that phrase doesn't actually communicate anything specific. What's hard? The situation, his feelings, the future, all of it. Madison is left to interpret, and interpretation in conflict often goes to fear-based places. And for Madison, she can be curious and ask curious questions to try to understand what is hard for Joe. Because when you both understand each other, that is so much more connecting than defensiveness.
I know you were feeling a certain way last night, and I did not, I'm sorry that I came off that way. I don't want that to happen again, so I'll make sure that if I do have something to come to you in a different way, or maybe talk about it, just be more intentional with my words and how I say things.
So Joe acknowledges that he wishes he had said things differently, which is a very positive first step. But as I have already suggested, what would have been even more helpful is if he could articulate what he wished he had said. That would make his true feelings clearer, both for himself and for Madison. What Joe might have said if he had more emotional language in that moment the night before is something like this. I want to share with you what I am feeling. When I signed up for Love is Blind, I wanted to find love, and I found that with you in the pods. Now everything is getting very real, and I'm having feelings that I didn't expect. I'm scared, and I worry about what our day-to-day life would look like together. I want us to talk about that together so we can sort this all out. Now, let me be clear. Even if you come into a hard conversation with the best of intentions and you articulate your feelings rather well, your partner may still have an emotional reaction. That's normal. It's upsetting, but it's normal. But that's the moment to lean into curiosity instead of defensiveness. You can respond by saying, "Can you tell me what you heard me say? I don't want to upset you. I just want us to talk through this together." That approach slows down the conversation, it reduces misunderstanding, and it can increase connection. When couples check in on what they heard, not what was just said, they can prevent the conflict from being hijacked by assumptions and fear.
Yeah. And I think I want to talk about those things. I want to hear the doubts and the fears. And in another side note, I put my ring back on.
Okay, nice.
I appreciated you cuddling me this morning and telling me that you are in this for me and that you
absolutely.
are excited.
I said I love you. I do love you. I'm going to be intentional with all that. So
I'm really happy that you thought about that.
So unless it was edited out, Madison never acknowledged what she could have done differently, and that piece is really important for repair. Putting her ring back on without addressing how that moment may have felt for Joe leaves the threat hanging in the air, unresolved. Even though she says that she appreciated Joe cuddling with her, appreciation is not the same as accountability. For true repair, both people need to name their part. I would have liked to hear Madison share what she regrets about how she engaged in the conflict, so that Joe could also feel seen and understood. So next, they are at Joe's apartment, and this was very interesting.
What kind of books do you read?
just a lot of, it's all self-help books, and I need all the help I can get, really.
You know what? It's funny, Joe. Actually, I'm a big self-help book person too.
I barely have any books that aren't like this is a self-help book. Yeah. These are my applied.
I find myself curious about what kind of self-help books both of them read, because that could show what areas of their lives they are trying to grow in. If they share similar interests in personal growth, that could be a meaningful point of connection, something that allows them to grow together. I mean, we know that won't happen. However, I will say this. Dating someone who is genuinely growth-oriented is a green flag. However, there is an important distinction. There is a big difference between consuming self-help books and applying it. And the same is true if you are in therapy. You can read every book, listen to every podcast, or attend every session, but real change only happens when you apply what you have learned to your daily life. Insight without action doesn't create growth. It just creates awareness without change. So next, Madison is meeting Joe's family, And I found this fascinating.
The stuff you talk about in there too, like it was almost like marriage counseling every day.
It really was.
To the max, yeah.
Honestly, the most therapeutic thing I've ever done.
In past relationships, I didn't find out till like 3 years down the road. That I just found out day 2 with her, or day like 4 with her.
I have often said that Love is Blind feels like dating on steroids. So when Joe says what he learned about Madison in 2 days is what used to take him 3 years in past relationships, that actually makes sense. In real-time relationships, it's often around the 2 or 3 year mark that couples hit the disillusionment stage, the stage where the rose-colored glasses fade and you start seeing your partner more realistically. That's when doubt, disappointment, and questioning are common. This is why I always caution people to not make major decisions until they've worked through that stage. Disillusionment is not a sign that you are incompatible. It is a sign that the fantasy is dissolving and the real relationship is beginning. It's the stage where you learn whether you can navigate conflict, accept differences, and grow together. According to Joe, the Love is Blind experience accelerates this process, compressing years of emotional milestone into days or weeks, which is why it can feel so intense and destabilizing for people like Joe. The timeline may be accelerated, but the emotional stages don't disappear. They just collide faster.
Like, of course, she just clicked with my family. They love her, and honestly, that means everything. I feel like I'm closer to her throughout that whole conversation. That's Madison. I felt it, I saw it. It's very much who I fell in love with. It felt good. It just reminded me of everything that made me fall in love with Madison, honestly. It was great. It was great.
Here's to Madison.
Family acceptance and support are incredibly important. And Joe clearly felt grounded by being reminded of what he loves about Madison. Even though their conflict has been challenging and he has felt overwhelmed by the entire Love is Blind experience, that moment with his family seemed to reconnect him to what drew him to Madison in the first place. It shows how powerful it can be when someone you trust reflects back the goodness in your partner. It can cut through the noise of fear and stress and uncertainty. But something that happened when Joe met Madison's family raised a red flag.
Is there anything that scares you?
I was in a relationship for 5 years. I was miserable, but I was like, oh, this is sometimes how it is. I was engaged, about to get married.
Had you set a date?
I had set a date, yeah. I had the invites, in my hand, stamped, written out. I just couldn't go put that in the mailbox. In the end, it was better for everybody.
Well, it's good you listened
Right.
to your heart instead of because the train was going down the track and it was going down the track fast.
Just waited to the last minute.
And I'll let Madison's mom express the red flag because she expressed it perfectly.
You told me that you were on your way to mailing invitations, so pretty much last minute. You're not going to last minute her, are you?
Obviously, Joe is not going to say, yes, I'm going to last minute your daughter. But this moment still raises an important red flag. His past matters, not because it should be held against him, but because it needs to be understood. If I were in Madison's position, I would want to know what Joe learned about himself from that relationship and what he is doing differently now. People don't magically change their patterns just because they love someone new. Without insight and growth, old fears, avoidance, or shutdown responses tend to repeat themselves, especially under stress, which is exactly what we're seeing in this relationship. A partner's past isn't a predictor of doom, but it is a roadmap. The question is not, did this happen before? But what has changed since then? So next we know that Joe walked out of his tux fitting, and what is important here is this.
This is all stressful. Just a lot of feelings, yeah.
What are your feelings?
You're here to get suited up, and everything is put into real life. So it's not anything that's, let's do this tomorrow. I gotta get out of here. I can't can't do this.
Joe could not name his feelings. We have a tendency to call everything stress, but when we don't name the specific emotions underneath, we lose the opportunity to understand and work through what we're truly feeling. Joe clearly has a lot going on emotionally, but he seems to struggle with identifying and expressing what he feels. When someone doesn't understand their inner world, emotions can become overwhelming, and the easiest coping strategy becomes withdrawal. That's likely why we're seeing a repeated pattern. Joe walked away last minute in his previous engagement, and he's pulling away again with Madison when things get real. Until Joe learns to recognize and articulate his emotions, he will continue to reach for the same escape hatch, leaving, because it feels safer than staying present in emotional discomfort. Next, Madison shares that Joe told her he had a breakdown at the tux fitting and said that she was not his person and that if he went to the altar with her, he would say no.
So I just want to understand, why? What is missing?
I don't have any answers.
Everyone wants answers and some form of closure, but the truth is it's incredibly hard to get that clarity, especially in the middle of so much emotional turmoil. I imagine that Joe doesn't even have all the answers yet. Processing something this big takes time, and time is the one thing this show does not allow. I believe Joe's decision to end things with Madison was layered and complicated, as these decisions often are. Yes, we know he mentioned that he is typically attracted to thinner women, but I don't get the sense that physical attraction was the core reason he walked away. I mean, who knows, that may have been one factor, but when Joe talked about feeling the same connection with Madison during the family visit that he felt in the pods, that tells me something deeper was at play for him. Their conflict was intense, communication was difficult, and the pace of the experiment puts enormous pressure on a relationship before it has any foundation. For someone like Joe, who already struggles with getting emotionally overwhelmed, the speed, the conflict, and the gravity of the commitment may have been simply too much for him to handle all at once.
I feel relieved. Like a weight is off my shoulders. It makes me sad that it didn't work out. But it got a lot harder to picture wedding, having kids, families. I would have been miserable. You can go through all of those things and try to tell yourself that it's a sacrifice and constantly trying to tell yourself that this is your person, but you know deep down that that's not the case. So.
It seems like Joe was trying to convince himself that Madison was his person and ultimately realized that he would be miserable if he had followed through with it. He also said that he was miserable in his first engagement. That tells me something important. Joe's growth work is not just about who he chooses, but how he chooses. Why does he feel the need to convince himself someone is right rather than know it from a grounded place? Why does his clarity come at the end, at the very last minute, only after everything has escalated to a breaking point? And why does he withdraw instead of slowing down to understand what he's thinking and feeling so that he can communicate that clearly to his partner before crisis hits? These patterns don't come out of nowhere. They are rooted in emotional habits, avoidance, being overwhelmed, fear of hurting someone, or fear of being the bad guy. But until Joe learns to recognize and address his feelings early instead of at the very end, every relationship he has will reach the same painful turning point.
I literally just feel like I'm gonna throw up. I can barely breathe. This is more than just a breakup. This is ending an engagement. This is ending a life that we were starting together.
It's brutal when someone you love breaks up with you, especially when you're still holding on and don't want it to end. That kind of rejection cuts so deep. Emotional pain is processed in the same part of our brain as physical pain, and that's why heartbreak can feel like being hit in the gut. It's real, it's consuming, and it leaves you gasping for solid ground. Madison now needs to take time to heal. And yes, while time matters, there's something more important than time. Time alone isn't what heals us. It's what we do with that time. The most empowering thing we can do after heartbreak is turn inward and gently ask ourselves, what did this teach me about me? What do I want to do the same in a new relationship? And what do I want to do differently? When we do that, we don't just survive the pain, we grow through it. Madison's growth work is to approach conflict with curiosity rather than fear, and to pause long enough to examine her insecurity, asking whether it comes from within her, from something she's picking up on in her partner, or both. She would also benefit from understanding boundaries and timing, like not waking Joe up when he is intoxicated, and avoid threatening gestures like removing her ring, which only deepens disconnection. By slowing down and sharing her fear, her vulnerability, she can stay more emotionally connected even in hard moments. Heartbreak can become a doorway to growth. On the other side is more clarity, more self-awareness, and more strength than you had before. And that growth is what prepares you for a love that meets you where you are, not where you were. Because healing isn't about replacing the person. It is about growing into a more confident version of yourself so that the next love you choose is steady, mutual, and worthy of who you've become. Heartbreak may break you open, but it doesn't have to break you down. Instead, you can build yourself up. Okay, that is a wrap for today. Make sure to come back for more Love is Blind. I'm going to be breaking down Annie and Nick, as many of you have asked me to do so. See you next time.